There's nothing positive about forcing your spiritual path in someone else's face. I've had to learn that the hard way because I would bootstrap my own insecurity by having other people want to believe what I believe. And what I know now is that energy will naturally unfold.
Welcome back to Empath Spiritual Awakening. Today we're in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania with a very special guest named Cindy James. And she's super special because she's known me since I was 5 years old. And you actually knew my mother too. And I actually read one of her stories of when she was really sick. You came over and I think you gave her Reiki. And she wrote about how my grandmother was in the kitchen and she was like, oh, I hope my mother doesn't hear what Cindy's saying right now about all the like energetic and spiritual stuff. So it's really cool too because you were a very foundational part on my spiritual journey. You were the first person that almost like invited me for help. Because I think for the longest time I wanted help, but I wanted someone else to do it for me. And so you kind of just invited me into your practice and that space to really talk about everything that was going on with me. And I think I saw you for about 2 years, if you remember.
Health Lonnie, first of all, sweetheart, my heart is so touched. I didn't know that about your mom's writing, or maybe I don't remember it. And I was saying on the way up here with my dear friend Helen that experience of knowing you as an elementary school student, the same age as my oldest daughter, that's how we knew, and then your mom's cancer and being able to be with her at that time during that transition, I mean, a number of times. And I remember that too, that kind of like, here it is, your mom getting ready to leave this realm and her kids, and there was nothing. I mean, your mom, strong, do we swear on this podcast? Strong ass woman and a powerful force in her own right. And knowing what she was going into and knowing that she wanted the more of that, but also being aware of how other people she loved could tolerate it or not. I mean, there's nothing positive about forcing your spiritual path in someone else's face. I've had to learn that the hard way because I would bootstrap my own insecurity by having other people want to believe what I believe. And what I know now is that energy will naturally unfold. And there was an experience with your mom up in her bedroom where it was me and her, and we talked about her knowing that she was going to go. And the pain wasn't a fun, is cancer fun? I mean, probably not. And I remember it's like, I call it like a forever in a moment memory. It's a snapshot on the Akasha or the soul of my personality of being with her and feeling so blessed that I got to be with that woman and maybe serve ameliorating just a bit of the suffering that she was in and the concern for her children afterwards, having no idea that you and I would be sitting here so many years later.
Yeah. And
as I drove up for this podcast today, I was thinking of you and in your adulthood, your young adulthood, and the conversations that we would have. And what I mostly remember about you that is now blossomed into such an extraordinary, beautiful flower is your longing to feel good. Like you so wanted to feel good, wanted to be happy, wanted to know love in relationship. Like it was an extraordinary force, and you had some wounds of like epic proportions to deal with at that time. And for me, in my position as being with you, in how to breathe into holding that eternal now space as you went through your very natural rhythmic journey to finding who and what you are. That was such an extraordinary time for me. And while we have our children, these parents have our children, you really can't be your children's guide in that way. It's a different type of thing. No. And to be able to look into your face and to see that and to learn so much for myself. So this moment in temporal reality that everyone gets to experience in their time and space, this is the power of longing and the courage and the willingness to step out no matter what happens, no matter what voice says this is stupid or you're crazy. I'm pretty sure you told me I was crazy multiple times. Like, where you would say something like, well, I don't believe that. I'm like, that's fantastic. You know, you don't have to, but I'll still share. Like, I won't diminish what I know to be true, nor force it on you.
And I think the reason when I would say I don't believe that, I think it's because I wanted to believe it. So I wanted to give you that chance to help me.
To defend the position. I mean, I was a practicing lawyer for a number of years, so now I call myself a universal lawyer. And in the many titles that I have, you know, given myself or been given in this realm.
Yeah.
And I love that too. There's a quote that says it's like the task for spiritual workers from Meher Baba, a spiritual master, and said that when you're with someone, your job is to be at their level without losing yours, so that you can communicate with them. It took me a long time to learn that. I'm sure I'm still learning it, to be able to know what's needed, to be able to be in that space, and to be able to then respond at a level that you might be understand. And you always soaked up everything. From a matter of energy, like talk about empathy, from a matter of energy, knowing that what we are when we're in service to someone else is just a conduit for energy. If you're giving your own, you're probably in, you know, codependent clusterfuck is what I call it, like kind of thing, like because that bootstrapping. But when it's coming through, there was so much always coming through for you because you were saying yes to it and soaking it up. So much so that I would have to ground in to be able to hold in my Cindy self the amount of energy coming through. And for you to be doing what you're doing in the world, I mean, follow you on Instagram, the dancing, I mean, that helped me in the pandemic. Let me just tell you, the way your body moves in time with that rhythm is amazing. And now this forum of sharing your unique voice with the world is really incredible. Wonderful.
I appreciate that. I appreciate this. And I love that you brought up, like, I just have this desire to feel good, or to at least feel better. And for the longest time, I felt like I was seeking happiness, but now I'm just seeking fulfillment. And that could be, because sometimes it could be sad, but if I'm able to alchemize the sadness into something else, then that brings me fulfillment. So, like, if I'm just not always happy all the time, which I don't think is possible, then I'm realizing that's okay. But literally right before you came here, I'm like sitting at that table and I'm just like, I just don't feel good right now. And like, I feel like I've got stuck like for the past at least month. And I've been on this journey for about 10 years now. And it feels like there's always something different to get me to the next level. And I just don't know what it is right now. And I feel like I've been very patient of like, this isn't the rest of my life. Just keep going, keep doing the podcast. Even though like there's so much fear that keeps coming up and like over criticizing myself and not feeling good enough. And I was like debating with myself at the table. I'm like, I like trying to write up a bunch of questions to ask you. And I'm like, I don't feel like writing these questions. Like I really just want to like talk about what I'm going through. So like I'm like debating. So I just asked Cindy about how do I get more squiggles in my bank account?
I love the squiggles. Have you talked to your people about squiggles? Like what I call squiggles?
I don't say squiggles. But I love, you've been saying squiggles for many years.
Yeah.
And I love it.
I have a soapbox, and I will say this with the authority of my infinite self, that money is not a real thing. It's what people agree as power, and power comes from the Latin root posse, which means to be able. So it's what people agree has the ability to move themselves, object, and others in time and space. And we've agreed it's limited in a convoluted, complicated, ever-binding system. A collective mass hysteria lack when it's just squiggles on a screen. We call that a number, squiggles on a paper, squiggles on a coin. And so I want to go back to what you said. You are so in the energy of fulfillment. I've been talking about that. And I've been writing about it. My new moon intention for this month was about ever renewing fulfillment and being able to realize feeling maximally fulfilled in the personality of myself coming from a greater perspective. Because fulfillment involves all of the ebb and flow.
Yes.
And I say, if anyone at this point in humanity is just in super la happy, they're either numbing or a perfect master. But the rest of us earthlings, if we're not feeling some intense feelings right now, I mean, I don't know how you can do it without numbing or being a fully enlightened being, because we are receiving such a huge upgrade in energy that it is meant to be, Lonnie, that everything that you and your lineage and that you represent, plus every being on this planet and beyond, each one of us has been tasked at this moment in time to address it, see it, and transform it, to alchemize it. That alchemy, that led into gold, is an energetic turning. That golden body, that golden form, the golden radiant energy that we then can represent with coin or with Mother Earth energy, we're all doing that. So you would be dealing with, consciously and even semi or subconsciously, transforming so much for you and your lineage. A lot of people like to talk 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. I don't know about limited numbers like that, but it's huge. And every single person that I interface with is doing such massive service transformational work by the willingness to be in our own skin, to feel those feelings, and to even get into the stuck energy and think, oh my God, how do I move forward? and to do that. We had, where we are right now, I haven't been in a very long time, and there is a church nearby that one of my ex-sister-in-laws was buried. Her funeral was there. And it was during the time of the first separation with my now ex-husband. And how things went down for that funeral, I felt like I wanted to die. And so I'm driving by, and I'm like, oh, hello, darkness, my old friend. And I was feeling, what happened was, I mean, I literally collapsed after that funeral in grief and wail and tears, and my sister and a couple of my friends took me into the car and took me back to my house. What I'm feeling right now is such gratitude for them. And when the wailing had its way and stopped, I said these words, and I remember that just now driving. Well, that was kind of fun. I mean, so fully human. To wail is fully human. To be stuck, like that wisdom that you have. I've taught workshops for years called the Foundations of Happiness, and there's so many things with that, but happiness has to do with our chosen attitude towards our human experiences, not this, oh, everything's Shangri-La. It has to do with accepting the ebb and flow and coming out of the level of judgment. We're moving, many spiritual circles are talking about the elevation of dimensions, that we've been mostly born into this 3-dimensional world, and we're having a really fast upgrade into 4 and 5-dimensional. And I don't really know that really well like some people do, but we're moving out of the level of judgment that keeps us bound to time and space into a non-judgmental level that aligns with the creative force within us. And therefore, that's what I think is so amazing. We can affect the healing of the planet and the elements and the water and the land from the energy that said, let there be light, where we're not judging everything as good or bad. When we just go through it, we can then align with it. So as you're going through, that's the alchemy then, to be able to shift what we see as dis-ease on almost every level of human existence, whether it's governmental, monetary, educational, media, I mean, just familial. There's so many levels of just dis-ease, the dis-ease of the separateness from the oneness. Because I've been saying right now, either we're one or we're not. Either we have the exact same creative power that made the heavens and the earth within us, or we're not. There's no time to dick around in between with doubt anymore, at least for me. It is full, all-out play. And we have free will on this planet. I say I only have the free will to suffer until I listen to my intuition, which is just to go for it. But we have that free will to just go for it. Like what you're doing with this podcast, whatever you're facing about self-doubt is the voice of the dis-ease of separateness that humanity suffers from. We've come here to enjoy separateness. Like, look, there you are, the different form. Like, it's so wonderful. That's the enjoyment of separateness, love and relationship. When the illusion of separateness becomes the delusion, I call it like illusion double, then it's like, oh, I'm in danger right now because, well, I mean, I just make shit up, like, Lonnie might not like me, or maybe I'm not going to look at it from this angle, and I'm going to look too old or fat or whatever, you know, good women have, or whatever it might be. Maybe someone I know will see this and think, and maybe an ex-in-law, like, how can she talk? Don't come into our business. Like, we can go into those things, but that's the delusion of separateness. Then I'm not enjoying the separateness. I'm being hurt by it. And I just saw a 5-week-old new baby. And this is what I love to say to the new ones, is like, welcome. Love is everywhere and love's in everything. And the game here on this planet is to enjoy it, is to feel it and enjoy it, which sometimes it means wailing for the grief of loss. And sometimes it means like multi-orgasmic pleasure and love. And sometimes it means sitting here with you. Like, what's 31 minus 5? Ooh, you're a math genius. I mean, literally, that's a hard thing for me.
26.
Okay, thank you. So that's how long we've known each other in this incarnation.
26 years.
It said that 27 is energetic maturity, so we're almost mature as friends and colleagues, like the fully formed.
So like when I get overly critical about the podcast, and I'm like, not good enough, or I need to change something, or I need to do something different, or be more structured, it is the separateness. And I'm just not enjoying it anymore. And I think that's what always propels me to like actually take action and change something. Because I realize that this just isn't how I want to continue. And then maybe it is like the shedding of, well, it's definitely the shedding of just how I've been living.
And that the voice, like your voice, like what I remember about you as even a young one was the quietness. And in your early transformational journey, like that how you would have so much feeling that you couldn't talk. Which, by the way, in its full completion, things that are real are given and received in silence. Like whatever was your flaw becomes your greatest attribute. That ability to transmit. And we're in an age right now where the restrictions on the voice have been taken off, and we're dealing with the wounds of that strangulation, of the ability to express ourselves freely and without fear of repercussion, whether it's being shunned, excommunicated, murdered, you know, hurt, whatever it is. I mean, that part is so big too, that we're dealing with. So every time you think about your podcast, casting your pod out into the world, there's so much richness. And it's not about numbers. Like what I have come to know and had to really surrender to from the truth of my infinite self, not my ego self, not the affirmation of separate self, is that the energy of this moment is what is rippling. So if 5 people or 500,000 people receive this, if 3 people like it and 30,000 hate it, like whatever it is, it's irrelevant. The classic way of measuring that you know from your financial guru kind of expertise has been mastering us rather than us mastering it when it comes to finances. And we're taking back that mastery of the measuring. And when we come into the true mastery of measuring, to feel in this moment the ripple effect throughout time and space of you and I sitting here, what has to happen? What has to have had? This is just not good English. Well, a lot of shit's gone down for you and I to be here. Including, I'm going to see Pink in concert tonight, which is why I'm back in this area. And her concert that I went to many years ago was one of the instrumental things that taught me that anything was possible. If Pink can sing upside down, twirling on a wire, so what, I'm a rock star, I got my rock moves, you know, and I don't need you tonight, which is not so much like about the jilted man kind of thing, but about I don't need to betray who I am to feel free. well, then I can do anything. And I don't, this is not a political assessment, but the other thing that was the thing that helped launch me into my fullish Cindy Unleashed and the things that I'm doing right now is that when Donald Trump became president of the United States, that seemed crazy to me. I understand so much more about what was going on, but I thought, if Donald Trump can become president of the United States and Pink can swing upside all around the Wells Fargo Center singing those songs, well then shit, I can be anything I want. And so can you. You can be a podcaster, you can be a dancer, you can be a lover, you can be a radiant force for this feeling better and going with your longing that you are. And that capacity of the depth, like what you have so naturally is the capacity for the depth of connection. And the surface stuff will not satisfy you for long. The surface stuff is lovely too. Like I want to have a nice couch and decorate my house right and talk about my hair and all that kind of stuff and how everyone's doing. But at that level of the stuff and junk or the story is just the most temporary satisfaction. But that ability that you have to get to the core, I would like you to say and state the title of this forum, this podcast.
Empath Spiritual Awakening.
Those 3 words.
Mm-hmm.
The empath spiritual awakening.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the age of the awakening. I call it like 3 ways we can serve. We can save, which is the savior. And it's nice. Someone's drowning, you can throw them something, mazel tov, save. Serve is wonderful, to be in service, but it still implies the other. When you're in service, we're still in duality. We're doing that thing for someone else, or they're doing it for us. Still, it's magnificent. We need service. But then the 3rd and the highest evolution is awakening. And when we awakening, it's not good English either. When we awaken, then that energy exists. Like that energy, for anyone who's receiving that, I would guide you to breathe into the intimacy of your relationship with yourself right now and something greater. And partake, if you want, of the waters of this awakening that you and I are experiencing. And let it awaken yourself, because we're in the age of the compassionate awakening, where that awake now to our true nature. And there's a quote that goes something like, true love cannot be coerced or forced. It's nothing if not spontaneous. And while love cannot be forced, it can be awakened through love itself. Those who don't have it catch it from those who have it. And true love is unconquerable and irresistible, and it goes on gathering power until it eventually transforms everyone it touches. And humanity, which includes all of us, will attain a new mode of being in life through the free and unhampered interplay of pure love from heart to heart. And so like everywhere we go, people, when you look at the problems on the world stage or in your bank account or in your family or your community that from the mind seem insurmountable and unsolvable. But when you drop into that level of the awakening and that gathering power, in an instant, things can change. In the eternal now, in the present now, in an instant it can change. And we're in the age of that changing right now. It is, I like to say, it's decreed, it's proclaimed, it's ordained, it is time. And what we have happening on the planet right now, I have to work to not judge it myself, because then I'm taking myself into binding, into my limited, I say Cindy dinosaur brain, not my infinite self. We have like 2 worlds being formed energetically. The world of those of us that are aligning with the truth within and going for it, no matter what anyone says, or I mean, it might affect us, but we're just going to go for it. And those that are really wanting to play out the old way, that negative pleasure that comes from complaining about what is, rather than acknowledging it and then transforming it within us and around us. And so in my world, I'm blessed to be connected with really extraordinary souls on the planet, present company included, and some of them with names that you would recognize. There is I love the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow. My healing space, I always imagined, never got it, but the sign above my space would be where troubles melt like lemon drops, and that's happening right now, this living over the rainbow for many of us. Now, we get pulled back by certain things. We get pulled back by old rules that bind us. I get pulled back by my idea of motherhood and what I should be and how I should be treated. That is still a bit of kryptonite for my superhero self. And I get pulled back sometimes when I look at my body naked in the mirror and I see the scars and the lines and the sags, and I've equated that with my safety and my lovability and my belonging. And I alchemize that to what I'm seeking is knowing that I'm safe, I'm lovable, I belong. And that my body, like Mother Earth, I hope this is working because I moved this a bit, like Mother Earth is beautiful. The Grand Canyon is beautiful. The dappled clouds are beautiful. Why we would make a woman's body, especially one that has gone through life and birth many times, that would be the thing that then is repulsive, is I can heal that issue in the world by looking at myself and saying, oh, it's amazing what your body is capable of. And Cindy, I am safe, I am lovable, I belong. So there's so much happening on so many multi-levels. And what I say to you and I say to everyone is that make no mistake, do not be deluded into thinking that every breath that you take has an effect on everyone and everything. And that whether you are consciously a shit to someone else and then you can realize it later. I just manipulated. I said something that seemed all really good, but it was manipulating someone. It was a manipulation that they would then treat me better if I gave them this talk about how they should be when they asked me about it. And afterwards I was just like, Cindy, look at what you just did. Everything you said was spiritual truth, but it was to convince that person that they were wrong with you before and they should be better with you now. And, in the 12-step recovery world, the 12 steps which apply to life, doesn't matter whatever it is, there's step 10, it was where you continue to take personal inventory, and when you're wrong, promptly admitted it. That's a beautiful thing to have a practice in whatever modality it is, where you can look and feel the sting of shame, which is always the sting of finding a block that you can free up. It's pride and shame are bedfellows, and dignity and humility is what you alchemize those into. It's just like, oh, you're still trying to feel good that way by someone else treating you the way you want. And I was saying on the way up to my dear friend Helen and lifelong colleague in the light that I had this like trumpeted to me from my higher self a few months ago. You did not come to this earth to be acknowledged by others. You came here to love with all your heart. Mm-hmm. And so when I think about that, like when I think I'm not being acknowledged, or I won't be acknowledged, I realize that I've then been bound from the purpose of creation that I've come to, and I believe everyone is to love freely in relationship. And it's a beautiful time and space. Yeah. And the energy in this moment is really, really tender and powerful.
Yeah. I want to say one thing about how much it takes so much conscious awareness to even see those subconscious things. Like when you said you manipulated a person, you didn't even realize it when you were doing it, but it took that awareness to even understand it. And the other day I was in my car just thinking how I feel like I understand everyone. Like I get why they do what they do, right or wrong, bad or good, like what we would call that. But like that also doesn't mean like I need to like subject myself to everyone.
Okay, so this is beautiful.
Yeah.
There's this wonderful quote that I love that says, everyone has a right to be asleep. Mm-hmm. If you're judging them for being asleep, you're asleep too. So you don't really know. Like we don't really know, but we think we know why people are acting like that. And you may actually be right, but I think if you're right, you're screwed too, because you're in duality. Right and wrong exist in duality. Yeah. And there's this thing about boundaries that I learned years ago. I used to think that boundaries were like walls. Like I can't be with that person anymore. They're toxic to me. Mm-hmm. I think whenever we're talking toxic, when it's not a heavy metal or some sort of poison, when it's with humans, we're in our own kind of poison. I'd like to say highly wounded. It's the highly wounded masculine or the highly wounded that acts in a certain way, and it's my wounds that act in a certain way. Boundaries are not walls. I thought they were walls, like I won't be around that person and I won't ever do that. Boundaries are actually choosing in your sovereign authority as a spark of all that is having a human experience, how you want to experience yourself. And then I will have this experience like, I don't like that experience of me. It's how I knew when I was manipulating the other day, because it was 10 words in, I felt this charge rising in me, and it was this kind of like panic and also this exigent. It's like the energy coming out of my mouth was like a military offensive. Mm-hmm. And I don't like feeling like that. I wasn't able to stop it in the moment. I heard a voice watching it, and afterwards I got off the phone. I was like, oh. So it's even a boundary with myself. A boundary isn't like, oh, I won't ever try to manipulate. Mm-hmm. A boundary is, I don't want to experience myself like that again. And there are certain people in this world that, again, it's not a permanent forever thing. It's that I don't want to experience myself in relationship with them for a number of reasons. One might be I'm not strong enough to not be seduced into a judgment and conflict current. And so that's just an awareness of my developmental level. Mm-hmm. Another might be that it's not good for them to be around me. It's like in The Wizard of Oz, when the water is on the witch and she's melting, or when you have really cold hands and you put warm water and it feels like frostbite when it's just warm. Like being around me just is like a mirror of their own inadequacies. Like whatever it is, my presence doesn't feel good to them, even though it should. And then there are the people that I've had to accept that we're not playing the same game anymore. And their game is not worse and my game is not better. It's just a different game. And to allow that chapter of my life to complete and to feel the grief of it. And grief in its highest form is an appreciation of the love that comes from abundance rather than the lack and the perceptive of loss of it. Mm. So like
Can you say that again?
Grief in its highest form is it comes from abundance. It's the appreciation of the love and that we had rather than the loss consciousness. So I feel that way with your mom right now. Like you got to have 12 years with her in this body. Were you 12 when she skedaddled? I say that too. Squiggles for money and skedaddle. No one dies, they change date, they skedaddle to the other side. So I like to say skedaddle, but like imagine from the perspective, which I do believe that you bask in, like I got to be with my mom for 12 years. Like I got to have her in my life. I got to come through her body. I got to experience that. I get to experience her in the spirit realm in whatever ways it might be. But, oh, wow, rather than, which you have to definitely go through, my mom died when I was 12. Mm-hmm. It was awful, which it was. I mean, certainly it was painful. But from the perspective of a greater wisdom of your higher self, like, wow, you got 12 years with her. I recently heard a story of a woman whose child was missing for a very long time. And the woman's prayer to God was, thank you so much for giving me this many years with my child. Thank you for giving me this. Not like bring them back, not like, oh, do anything. It was just this purity of appreciation of the time that was shared. And then when the season completes, to have it be from fullness, not lack. One of my younger brothers skedaddled 4.5 years ago. I say grief takes like about 4 years generally. I mean, there's no real thing, but like I said, the first year is awful and the second year is terrible. Like really, really bad. And the third year, it starts to settle in more, that this is my life now. And then by year 4, it starts to move into where they become a memory that doesn't trigger emotions of pain. Sometimes, like I realized the other day, like my younger brother Stephen, so it was Cindy, Michael, Stephen, Amy, like, so he lived and worked in China many times, most of his life, so he would call and he'd say, Wei, because it's like saying hi in Chinese, it's like, this is your number 2 brother calling, it's like your number 2 brother calling, because it was him. And I just realized I haven't heard that in 4.5 years when I was with my other brother, and that was the thing that struck me, and I cried, and I haven't in a while. So it's been over 4 years, so there's still the things, but mostly his life has been assimilated into my own. And I heard this really cool thing that Ethel Kennedy, the wife of Robert F. Francis Kennedy Sr. and mother of RK Jr., so she had her husband assassinated when she was pregnant with her 11th child, and there's the whole family history, and then 2 of her children have died of addiction over issues, and she was asked by one of her sons, RK Jr., that how do you deal with the hole? Does it ever go away? And she said the most amazing thing. And it was like the hole stays the same, but your job is to grow bigger, to be able to have that be in proportion and to take their attributes and make them part of you, that they haven't gone away. And so the hole is the same, but you get bigger. And I think that's really true. I think that's what grief does from abundance. You take it to expand. There's this quote that says, neither seek death nor fear it, but when death comes to you, it is converted into a stepping stone for higher life. If death has any value, it's to teach the individual the true art of living. So we're in true art of living right now. You who are receiving this, you are in true art of living, which is all of it, which is that good and that bad. And whatever, I love this thing too, that when you're aware of not feeling good or stuck, that's always a result of your higher self-consciousness, because otherwise you'd just be unaware. So it's like, it's a reflection of the devotion you have to taking yourself out of the bindings and moving forward, and it does take courage. And it is really helpful to do it in connection with others. And the paradox is, we have to do it on our own, but we don't have to do it by ourselves. Like, you have to feel you and do it on your own, and I have to do it for me, but yet we get to have this experience where it just opens up so much more. And we get to do it in this world with technology that not only is it energetically affecting the whole, there are those that have the blessing to answer the call to be part of it in a podcast way, or a Zoom way, or whatever it might be. And you get to facilitate that and to have faith that it's about the energy. I like to say in the past life, future lives, many lives theories of existence, my future self is like, thank you, Cindy. Thank you for what you did this lifetime. And like your future self, like, oh, Lottie, thank you. Thank you for what you were willing to do. And I think we're going through like bazillion lifetimes at once right now. That's
what it feels like.
It really is like
I've lived a lot of lives in this lifetime.
And I think we all are, especially those that are choosing not to hold on to the old as that way for whatever reason. And I can't even say they're choosing to hold on the old because they're of some lesser development. That's my ignorance. They might just be playing that role, so we then have to go out on our own. I heard this thing once that very high vibrational beings will come to play the bad guy in life. Like, I'm going to move this right now just up a little more. So we just don't even know. Those multiple lifetimes. Tell me, what have you learned in your multiple lifetimes?
I feel like the biggest thing I've learned is that I was trying to seek happiness and joy and bliss like 24/7. Like, I was on this hunt. How do I get there? What do I need to do? Do I need to meditate, journal? Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to read? And that's just not how my life has ever been. There's always been the highs and the lows. And with those lows, it brought the highs to be even more fulfilling. And then when I'm in that like state of awareness and clarity, I've loved and appreciated the lows. So it's like this acceptance of loving where I am, no matter where I am, no matter how I feel, and appreciating it. And to slow down with like striving for that always good feeling. But like, I also can feel myself still striving for it. And like still trying to figure out like, well, how much low vibrational energy do I let myself linger in? And still, it's been this constant question and seeking and acceptance of like not really, I don't think we'll ever really know all these answers that I'm trying to figure out. But to enjoy that, because that's why I'm here, is to experience.
I heard this thing from a man named Robert Everett Grant, and he is like, we don't need the questions. He's like a polymath guy. I didn't know what that meant until I heard about him. It means like multiple discipline, like super degreed in science, art, music, and many things. And I follow him on Instagram and his interviews on YouTube. And I don't know if it was him or he said, he was quoting someone else, but he said, what does an infinite being do for fun but limit itself?
Exactly.
Like, and I thought of the three-legged race.
That's why we're here.
Exactly.
We want to experience this limitation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so cool too to keep expanding our limitation. Like I'm like here, but like next year I could be here, just for the simple joy of experiencing everything in between.
I said, like, why do people play football? If you want to know why, whatever the God is that created an earth where we forget, or major cosmos, I mean, I think there's way more life in the cosmos. Well, why do we do anything?
Exactly.
And I just think, like, specifically football is a really great example. Like, you're going to beat the hell out of each other, get a ball over a line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and who gets the ball over the line is the champion, and we have bazillion-dollar industries and all go Eagles and all of that. And I still have some judgment, so I have to work on that. But it really is indicative of let's play the game. But when the game becomes more than the game player, then we lose it. Like, that's where then, you know, I used to say, and this is certainly my opinion, when they were building the Lincoln Financial Field and $40 billion or whatever it was, I was thinking, like, so money really is what people agree is power. It's not a thing. Mm-hmm. And they can raise that money like that for a new stadium. And in the city of Philadelphia, what about the children that have subpar education and food and health and water? Like, how is it that we're still agreeing that the competition of the beating each other to get a ball over a line is a better business than taking care of our social service systems in a new way, you know? And so I pose that only for the fact that an infinite being limiting itself for the joy of playing the game is different than an infinite being who's limited and still playing limited. Like, still playing from that's the only paradigm that exists. A limited being that isn't on the path to awaken to the infinite is just unnecessary suffering. And I know that when I was in that example of manipulating to try and get what I wanted, I was limiting myself from the negative current, not for the joy of it. And I fully have compassion, accept myself. I'm telling you, I'm telling others, you know, it's podcasts and all that. And I was just like, oh, I don't like playing like that anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't like really playing separate and I have to have power over so I get what I want. And that's, I think, how we purify all of competition. When I was talking about saving, serving, and awakening as the evolution of where we are now, I also talk about the evolution of the 3 C's. Competition, which is lovely if you're trying to improve your tennis game. But if you're trying to prove that you're better than someone else, it becomes like cancer. I say about cancer is that cancer doesn't know it's suicidal. It goes on putting out its shoot until it eventually kills its host. When we're in competition mindset from the level of power over or resources or money or whatever it is, those that are accumulating from that ignorance are killing the whole planet in the oneness as well. And then we can move to a higher evolution, which is cooperation, which is like, oh, you have your food and I have my food. Well, that's lovely. That's way freaking better. For faux show, it is better. But if we really want to go into the magic, it's collaboration energy. It's that we're back into that spirit of the oneness, having a human experience, and you're having that. And then you and I get together in this moment in time to be able to share the journey that we've had for the upliftment of ourselves and everyone and everything. That energy is new life energy. That is the energy that, you know, I think even in orgasms and sperms and eggs, like that kind of collaboration where those forces come together to make something new. That's cool. So when we shift into collaborative awakening, I mean, I say more gasms, less isms for everyone. Like, we can have more of the pleasures of life. And that's the feminine principle. And you embody that so beautifully, even with how you dress and how you dance. that feminine principle, and to take it out of gender, is the receptive principle. It's the surrendering, it's the patience, it's the nurturing, it's the pleasurable. I mean, I like to use the word clitoris in every podcast I can do. It's the only organ that is made just for pleasure and the rhythm of pleasure. I don't think that's an accident that that's in the feminine form. As we bring in a new age, we're in the age of, we're spanning 2 ages right now when it comes to epochs and eras spiritually. The Kali Yuga is the age of destruction. It's the last in a 7th cycle. And we're moving into a new golden age, and we're spanning both. That's what's kind of happening right now. There are those of us that are living, that are seeking with that kind of exigency and also surrender, that golden age. And there are those that are playing out the Kali Yuga. And then sometimes I'm always saying I'm spanning both, like straddling both.
That's what it feels like.
And then when I get both feet in the golden age, I'm like, I mean, talk about orgasmic. And then when it's like, hello, darkest my old friend, and like without the judgment again, it's like, oh, like Newman, it's like, I'm back in that. And that rhythm, it said that the feminine principle specifically in the United States of America is what's going to help usher in the new age. So I identify as a female. I've had female experiences. I have boatloads of male energy. I mean, I have PCOS, so I had the testosterone of 10 men I used to joke too, and the laser hair removal to help with that as well. So I understand those in principles, but I am loving right now coming into the tenderness and the fierceness of a woman who loves and longs to nurture and receive love. And that principle will help balance. The masculine is the initiating active force, but when it gets highly wounded, it forces, and it's aligned with ego rather than infinite love. And I think that our world is the result of, in whatever you identify as, the highly wounded masculine that forces and then collapses, and all sorts of things happen. And the highly wounded feminine doesn't know her power and thinks she's not enough without that security that comes from the male gaze or the accolades for her femininity. And as we heal that, the masculine, which is within us all, acts with that alignment with infinite unconditional love and protective and preserving energy. And the feminine gestates and nurtures and brings the pleasure of new life and then coming together. That's what we get to do right now. And that's what everyone gets to do.
So I think right now, my uncomfortable transition, I think what's happening is I have been in my wounded, I'm sure there's times of healthy masculine, but also very wounded masculine energy of going to college, getting an accounting degree, working my ass off because I was seeking some type of validation through that, but it just never felt good. So I've been pretty much doing that for the past 10 years and like still trying to heal through everything. And I just took a break from my job. And I've been feeling exhausted. Like, I just don't want to live how I was living previously, like forcing myself to do all these things, forcing myself to be the provider of my life. And so I bought a bunch of plants and like taking care of my home. And I kind of feel like I'm like teetering back and forth between unhealthy feminine, but also healthy feminine. And maybe like that's like the transition I'm trying to integrate of like, and it feels a little overwhelming with these thoughts of like, I'm not good enough. It's like, I'm so aware and conscious of it, just keep hearing them. And I'm still like continuing to do my podcast and edit videos. But it's like getting to the point of like, okay, like what now? What do I do now? How do I move forward? How do I feel more of the healthy, healed feminine? Because that's what I'm seeking.
Oh, fuck, you're right in it. You have just described what I have. I have relationship with so many really beautiful, high vibrational women. And I would say across the board, everyone is in the state that you're in right now. The old does not work and the new's not here yet.
My God.
And then what do? But this is what I say, what's so amazing is that the feminine principle that's going to bring in the new age faithfully surrenders to the one. So we are in a state where we are called to faithfully surrender to the natural rhythm and the intuition to know when to act next.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not here yet. And it makes me knuckin' butts. And to be able to say, I can't, it's why I'm on sabbatical right now. I brought my businesses to a close, my online forums, my private practice. I left my house up in the Philly area, living down the beach, and I'm not doing my stuff. Well, fudge. But I know that my body won't sustain doing it the old way anymore. And it's not that what I was doing didn't even seem, it wasn't even like mainstream like accounting. It was like super crunchy spiritual healing stuff, but it was still stuck in the old modality of getting business and advertising and marketing. And I felt like I was dying. See, the light just went out. It was like death, like half death. And I think for you, it is so brave. It's like Joan of Arc going to the stake. In the modern world for us, it's like saying, I can't go back until I feel called. I'm not going to force that flower open before it's ready, and maybe I'll starve.
Exactly.
But I always say, like, worst case scenario, I'll live in someone's basement, but at least I'll be true to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm pretty sure, well, if the worst happens, like if the predictions of, like, it really is, I always tell people, don't worry, it's just the apocalypse and Armageddon all rolled up into one. So what's the worst case scenario? I'm starving, I'm beaten, or I die. Well, death is not the last act of a cruel absent goddess. Change your state, just get out, mazel tov. I mean, when it's my time to go, I will be the first in line, like, pick me. I mean, I'm staying, I've been told I have it on good authority, I have 40 more years. I'm like, well, you better delight me then. And that, of course, that's within me too. But at this time, so I'm not having income coming in. I'm looking at my resources. I'm doing math. I can do math even though I can't add or subtract like you just did in that moment. But generally, I'm very good at that. And I just thought, but I can't. The only regret, I've said this for years, the only regret that I would really have at the end of my life is acting from fear rather than faith. And I don't care if someone says I'm not being prudent or I'm not responsible. That's that. I didn't come to be acknowledged. Because that paradigm is dead and it's killing children and everyone on this planet, including Mother Earth. Mm-hmm. So I might be hungry, or maybe I have to live in someone's basement, or, work in a job that I didn't want to work at. But I feel such a sense of, Lonnie, that like I say, my free will is only to suffer until I listen to intuition. I would expect that you're in the same place right now. I remember when you stopped working to go get your teacher certification in Thailand. Did you go to? Mm-hmm. I mean, that was hugely courageous and powerful for you. Mm-hmm. And you can live with me. Like I would say, worst case scenario is we'll live at the shore together in some sort of like tiny postage stamp commune that I have. And I'm starting to make friends now. Like I go to a little organic market, like making friends with the people there and having people over for dinner and starting to find my tribe. And I'm going to Austin next week. Aubrey Marcus is a really amazing podcaster. Have you ever listened to Aubrey Marcus?
I have.
Well, I'm going to go to his live podcast with RK Jr. next week and go to dinner with him, and someone that I know is really good friends with him. And I'm going to Austin to hug him and to thank him, because when COVID hit and I had just moved out of the house during the divorce and into an apartment. I moved into an apartment on March 15, 2020 because I wanted to be around people. I mean, shut down. I didn't even see my neighbors until 6 months later when there was a fire alarm in the middle of the night. I mean, I was like hermetically sealed with boxes. I started searching the interwebs, as my brother calls it, for high vibrational men. Like, I know a lot of high vibrational women, but where are the men that are really attuned? And I found him years ago, and I started listening. And I was introduced to Zach Bush, who's an amazing person, to that, Matthias DiStefano, to Charles Eisenstein, to all these people, again, mostly men too, although he does interview people like Dr. Patrick and other people that are high vibrational. But it brought me such a sense. Part of the reason that I was able to feel good once I went on sabbatical, it took me a while. I had to shift my whole perspective because I've taken on the masculine force of healing the world, which is not the way it's going to come. I had this deep sense that the masculine is on the job, and Aubrey is one of those people. Like, they're on the job, they're doing the job of initiating so that the feminine can grow. And I am so looking forward to hugging him and thanking him for being who he is in my world, because like, we really are all one. There is no difference between me and you and him and whoever it is that we might see, or the people that make us knocking butts. You know, there is no difference. There is no hierarchy of the soul. And but it feels so fulfilling to be able to play with people that are taking a stand on the truth within, even if it's crazy and even if it endangers their lives, which it does, it can. I mean, you can leave this realm because you're taking a stand on the truth within, or you can be attacked or in fear because of it. We want to erase that. Those are the people that I want to play with. God, what's his name? He was in The Fly, the tall guy with the eyes. He does this, well, God, I can't remember his name. He was in a movie with Gina Davis too. Well, he does this thing where he says, he quotes some sort of famous poet, but he says, I want to be with the mad people. This is totally butchering the thing, but the people who burn so bright. Like, that's who I want to play with. And I've been acting in accordance with the future with that in it. You have been too. That's why we're here right now. Mm. And to release that for others, the Empath Spiritual Awakening, the Cindy Unleashed, all of that. This is like, how is it that we are so blessed with the ability to go for what we long for, even though it breaks everything else? It's just amazing. And the worst case scenario is if we die, well, your mom skedaddled and she survived it. Like, that's what I say when my mom left this realm. If someone just recently asked me, what were my mom's last words? So she had cancer and COPD and she died at hospice in my old home. And she'd gone into kind of a coma. It was wicked painful and awful like it is. And, remember that. And, but she came out of consciousness an hour before her last breath. And she was like, oh, where am I? I mean, she thought she had died. And I'm like, oh, Mom, you're not dead yet. You're still in David's room. And she went, ugh, and went back out. Because, like, she was hoping to have skedaddled and she was still in the body. And I was letting her know, but soon, Mom. And when she did cross realms, I cheered for her. I'm like, you did it. You did it. You completed. And we sing happy trails to when people we love skedaddle now until we meet again. Like my mom died and survived. You died and survived. You not having squiggles for a while, or me not getting accolades, or having people that I love cut me out because I'm crazy, or whatever it is. But I just think being incarnated is crazy, and we get to choose whether to be crazy connected or crazy separate, crazy happy, crazy miserable, crazy abundant, crazy lacking. Like, it's already crazy. Like, when we poop, we have sex, that goes in where, and then what happens? Like, it's just crazy, and then the body just, it's crazy. So it's like, but it's either going to be crazy great or crazy awful.
Exactly.
And the crazy great is all of that. It's the joy and the sorrow, the pain and the pleasure, the up and the down, the this and the that, the masculine and the feminine, the yes and the no. All of it. It said that when we realize, when we're at the end of the game, so we have like 8.4 million lifetimes. You don't have to believe that, but it said, that's one of the theories, is that when we come to that realization, at the end of that, every bit of humanity played out, from the high to the low, the victim, the villain, and everything in between, all of the suffering amounts to practically nil. It was just, really well played game. And we have moms that have left the realm. And I think in that feminine current, when we're talking about the generations back and forth, we have so much support for this moment in temporal reality held in that, for you and I and for everyone and everything. And by the way, it's happening right now. It is no longer the time where we're building to the energy of the awakening. It is here. And either we partake of it or we don't. That's why I say we're one or we're not. No dicking around in between right now. I mean, not to, like, I don't want to malign the male genitalia, but it's like, there's just, for me, there's just no entertaining that. And when I do entertain it, because I'm still human, I will suffer. And then a boundary I set myself. I don't want to experience myself like that. What can I do? First thing, have compassion for the humanity. There's a quote that goes something like, shame never liberated a spirit, and self-righteousness never opened a heart, including our own. So it's like, oh, Cindy, you just manipulated the hell out of that, pretending using your spiritual mumbo jumbo to really get what you wanted. It's like, that's terrible. You're still feeling like you need something outside of yourself, and you're feeling that wound. Why don't you go somewhere else? Why don't you choose something that will help you actually heal that wound, which has nothing to do with what someone else thinks of you? And then in the last analysis, what I know about abundance, and I think this is what holds so many people back, that's why my forums have been so focused on prosperity consciousness, because I think the delusion of lack and the insidious pain it causes. I mean, I've got to think that the slave trade comes from thinking that you can't do your own work. Like the people, what the imagination that would take someone to go to another land and capture people and bring them back. has got to come from lack. Like the heinous things that people do, including me, like if I were to look at my body, which really doesn't happen that much now, and think like, oh, it comes from lack. Like I'm not going to be loved if I don't have this physical thing looking a certain way. When we take that imagination, which is the same creative force that made the heavens and the earth, and this crossroads of the soul that humanity finds itself is a crossroads of how we do the imagination, and we put it into abundance, we realize that money is just a reflection of the resources of Mother Earth and how to share them. And now it's time to go to her directly. So we'll go to the ocean and to the stream and to the air and to the trees. And maybe we learn how to forage, and maybe either poisonberry and die, congratulations, you're done. I mean, something's going to take you out. I say, when it's our time to go, it's either going to be a slip and fall in the shower, or an assassin, or a murder, race, all those things. But like when it's our time, it's ordained. So as you are in this state of being a living beacon for the alchemy of truth, connect in, and I say this to anyone that's in the crossroads of the money issue, because that system is so sick. It's like taking cancer to cure cancer in some ways, when it might feel like to have traditional jobs, traditional corporations now. You can be above that because you have the energy that made duality and illusion, so you don't have to do that, but you can understand how it feels so bad. Go back to the originating purpose of money and of the forces of the planet and the cosmos and the moon and the stars, which is to be able to give us our basic needs so that we can then enjoy love and relationship, so that we can share with one another. And so I have a practice now working with the elements. Akasha or ether is kind of that void of potentiality, that space that the imagination springs from. And then in the pantheon of elements, it's like, and let there be light, which is fire. And then the next element is air, which fans the flames. And then water comes into being and flows. And then earth is the mineralization, security of it. Connect into your bones as the minerals. Connect into your blood as the fluids of the earth. Connect into the air, and the spleen chakra has to do with the air, and which is also our immune system, which is really up right now. And then connect into the fire, the triple warmer, and the metabolic activation within our body, and the magma of the earth, and the fire, and the sun, and the stars. We are then chaste to, especially the force that really does gestate new life just by faith. I said, I just had sex and didn't die for 9 months. Like that, whatever happened within me was a greater force that was of my body and my spirit. The feminine energy has that energy right now. So as you contemplate, and anyone in your state or my state, as you contemplate how to move forward, know that no matter what you do, you have the energy that made the illusion. So maybe you do go back to, the squiggle abacus counting of the classic accountant, but from the energy of bringing the truth into that form. And maybe you have a few more months or years where you're working off savings and you're doing odd jobs, or you're just asking. I mean, I do ask the universe to delight me with money, and then things happen. Mm-hmm. Because she wants to nurture her children, like the feminine force, like the breast milk of our true nurturing. She wants to make the perfect fluid for us to grow in. And when Mother Earth, what she's going through right now, I mean, there's all different ways to evaluate it. I think it's beyond our mind's comprehension. But mostly what she says to me is, I know how you feel. Like, I just want to nurture you the way you want to nurture, and not everyone's ready for it yet. But the power that made the heavens and the earth, and that made Mother Earth and Father Sky and all the parent energies to take it out of gender, it's awakening now. It's the time. And I would rather die tomorrow in the truth of infinity than live for 100 years in the delusion of lack. I would rather be cut off from everyone that I thought I needed and have them hate me than to suppress what my relationship with my higher power and I came here to experience. For the people, I'm 58 3/4. I love adding that because it's like fun. I'm very happy about that, to have fun with numbers. But for people like you, the younger energies numbers, I think the 20, 30 somethings are at probably the most difficult crossroads of the soul in humanity, especially with a deeply caring heart and wanting to make a difference with the world, and that can be co-opted by the forces of separateness that keep the game of duality going.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes, like I say, bravery, courage, a spirit of optimism, a discovery energy, an ability to connect in deeper within you to be able to step out of old paradigms, really step out of them. Not just to pretend like I did in that conversation where I was manipulating with infinite truth to get my old ego wants fulfilled, but to really step out. And it's supported like no other time. It is pouring like amber nectar from the golden truth of existence through our crown for every bit of us. This moment in time is that emanation. And may everything that you long for manifest swiftly, naturally, and pleasurably. It's time. It serves the world. It will do that too. I mean, you're an extraordinary soul. The life that you've led in your family structure and life on this planet has led you to be able to literally look in the face of death and still move forward, and to be able to contemplate what you long for. I mean, coming to see me and doing that, I mean, that's so out of like, not, maybe back then it's a little different now, but it takes a lot of courage to go talk to someone who's what? I mean, I don't know what I am. I got the Reiki Master Choice Ceremony. I'm a Noble Light Institute of Metaphysics. I'm a Celtic shaman, a Native American shaman, a sound and healing master. I mean, a vibrational coach. Body. I call myself a stand-up healer too, because let's have some fun. I mean, it really is funny. It said that from man's perspective, Earth is a tragedy, but from God's, it's a comedy, because we're all one. And I think what we're doing here on the planet, and what we do when we have that lower vibrational voice, is like we're smashing the big toe so our knee doesn't hurt. Well, it distracts from the knee, but then we're, whatever. So when we hate someone else, we're just distracting from the original wound, which is like even with the knee. I use that analogy all the time, but it's a good one, because the knee energetically helps us move forward, helps us dance, it helps us make love, it helps us, get up and down. So let that be the force that motivates you, and let the true abundance that flows from the infinite supply of the divine, especially through the feminine and masculine aligned and the alchemical marriage of those forces, let that, I see that it will delight you as you do your part to seek, but without force, and to be able to tolerate the natural rhythm of new life manifesting for you. That is extraordinarily pleasurable for the world. I talk a lot. You remember that.
Yes. And I have a question that I like to ask everyone. If you could send one message to every person in this world, what would that message be?
Love alone is real. And it's ours to enjoy and create with. Now, this very second, and the next, and the next, and the next. Love, which is not like, it could be. Love, the primal force that made the heavens and the earth, that aligns every atom, every electron, every neutron, every proton, every everything, alone is real. And all else is illusion. It's the game to play with that now and to enjoy it. I mean, it's a long answer, but but that is the truth. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm talking to every soul on the planet, because you and I are not we but one. We have that ability. We're connected through a matrix of light, which is the essence of our soul. You asking that question in this forum and me answering it is not just a mental exercise. When so right now, love alone is real. You get to enjoy it right now. Whether you're being murdered at this instant, love alone is real. Feel it, enjoy it, and have fun with it.
Thank you. And where can people find you?
CindyUnleashed.com is my website. Is that right? I have my credit. That's so good. Technology. Thank you, Helen. CindyUnleashed.com. What you can find on there is the things that I've been doing for the past many years. As of September of 2023, whenever that you receive this beautiful, wonderful being, I'm on sabbatical, but it doesn't mean I'm not available. And as I let the universe within me and around me delight me about how I get to play in the awakening next, there will be more from me. What a wonderful world you've created here, Lonnie, for me to step into in this moment in time. Thank you.